Welcome one and all, it's time for yet another red hot, spicy, sizzling, tingling edition of Kings of War Tournament Report. This time, Countdown. Now, this tournament took place yesterday at Mantic HQ, a Mantic tournament, unranked because of the crazy and wild nature of this tournament, and because of that there were quite a few new players there as well. So I had no idea it was unranked until actually arriving on the day. So had I known, I maybe would have picked a slightly more wild and crazy army list. But 1,000 points, very low amount of time on the clock. So for the first 2 rounds, you get 25 minutes each, which is very reasonable at 1,000 points. Rounds 3 and 4, you get 20 minutes each. And then in the final round, round 5, you only get 15 minutes each to complete all your turns. So, you've got to play fast. You don't want to take too complicated an army. You don't want billions of attacks to roll. So if someone offers you a rear charge, then maybe consider not taking it. If you think it's going to take you 5 minutes just to complete that one combat, that in the final round that could be a third of your time on one round of attacking. So, 4x4 tables. And as I remove the episode thumbnail here, then you can see that all the tables are pretty similarly laid out with the terrain. So we've got some hills, we've got some impassable terrain, and we've got some woods, and we've got a few obstacles as well. And the scenarios are all pretty straightforward, so there's nothing too outrageously complicated, which is nice. So the first scenario was Invade, then we've got Pillage, Push, Control, and Dominate. I think that is the order. So, simple ones, nothing involving you deleting tokens or revealing tokens of different value or anything like that. Just the fastest possible, most streamlined scenarios you can have other than kill, which, let's face it, nobody wants. And an interesting variety of army lists that we see here, because when you drop down to 1,000 points, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can just scale down the army list that you would normally take, just take a bit less of everything and try and have like a mini version of that army, or you can just keep the things that you think are really strong, keep multiples of those where possible, and then just sprinkle some other delights in there as well, which is basically what I've done. You can see my list is mostly trolls, and had I known it was an unranked event before I arrived at the events, then I probably would have taken a bit more variety, but troll hordes, pretty straightforward to use. So having 3 units that are essentially the same in combat is going to speed up my play as well. So I can just have a big pile of 18 dice ready to go for their attacks, and it doesn't matter which horde it is fighting. I haven't given them any artifacts that change the way they attack, so that's going to simplify things. So, 3 troll hordes. Because of the low point level, I couldn't really feel justified in taking the king with the upgrade for the aura of headstrong, so I just decided to go back to my old ways with the trolls, giving them each an item that's going to either prevent them getting wavered or mitigate the negative effects of them becoming wavered. So we've got one with Dwarven Ale, one with Chalice of Wrath, one with the Staying Stone, which was the old combo. Then we've got a regiment of Fleabag riders, and they have the Mace of Crushing because there were just 5 points left over. Got a Troll Bruiser with the Blade of Slashing, which is always a nice choice for him. Those 5 attacks, quite often one of them's going to miss, so why not try and convert that into a hit? We've got a War Trombone, because it's a War Trombone and they're amazing, and obviously at 1,000 points you can only get one of them in there. And there's also a Wizard, just a little whiz there, and he's got the Conjurer's Staff. So quite often I like to boost up the lightning bolt of the whiz. On this occasion I've just done that with the Conjurer's Staff, so I'll be re-rolling one of the dice that fails to hit, because there's likely to be at least one. Okay, so that is my list. And we can have a look to see what I'm up against in round 1. You can probably see that it's undead, but let's see what's actually in the list, shall we? I was looking at other lists I could have taken to this event beforehand as well, with my Abyssal Dwarves, Halflings, Undead, various armies I've got at my disposal. In the end I went for the Goblins, so I think Trolls are a pretty juicy choice at this points level. They're not a huge chunk of your points on their own, but Undead are certainly fleshed out, shall we say, with lots of decent options for this level. So, ghouls. So, 3 regiments of ghouls, and wild charge on them. One of them has got Helm of the Drunken Ram, one with the Staying Stone. And the Ghoul Ghast is the key here, because the Ghoul Ghast has Aura, Thunderous Charge 1, Cannibals only. So all the ghouls have Thunderous Charge 1 by default, and then Helm of the Drunken Ram is going to give Thunderous Charge +1 to that unit. So Thunderous Charge on the ghouls, and they're not exactly slow ghouls, so you will be able to get some charges in with them, so that seems like a nice combo, and not too ridiculously expensive for this points level. There's still points left over for a horde of zombie trolls with the Brew of Sharpness. Now, I've never been totally sold on putting the Brew of Sharpness on a unit that only has 18 attacks, but Crushing Strength 2, can't really argue too much with it. Then we've got a Necromancer with the Inspiring Talisman, because we needed a little bit of inspiring in there, surely. I've only got 1 lot. And Aura Vicious, zombie only. So that's going to be the zombie trolls that will benefit from that. And let's see, anything else in here? Surge and Bane Chant. So Bane Chant obviously useful for anything that's coming up against high defense units. So it'll be useful against me with my defense 5 trolls making up the bulk of my army. Goreblight. And that seems like a good choice at this point level. Maybe it's expensive, but it's pretty tough, decently killy, and the Cloak of Death ability, on a battlefield of this size, you only really need 1 to cover most of the enemy line once the fighting starts, unless it's a scenario that requires spreading out. So, probably a nice choice there. So, Invade up first, and what is my strategy here? Well, upon looking at my opponent's army list, I determined that the zombie trolls are the big threat here, so I'm going to try and take them out first. I don't know if any of my units single-handedly could take them out in one go, and the ghouls have the speed advantage on everything that I've got apart from the Fleabags, and there's 3 of those. Because of their wild charge, they're going to have the advantage against the trolls, and I would rather not just be hit by all this lot at once. The 3 ghoul regiments with all that thunderous charge can actually tear through trolls potentially, so I'm going to want to hit first where possible. So I'm going to try and hit this really devastating unit there. I don't think any of the others on their own are going to take out trolls. So if I can minimise multi-charges and try and soften up this unit so that when the fighting does start, I'll be able to take them out. That's the general plan. I've got my cavalry over on this side just to prevent the enemy just sweeping forward without even giving this side a second thought, and I've also got a hill I can jump onto with them and get the thunderous charge bonus, which is pretty important. So there's my deployment. The Staying Stone is that obelisk there, the Dwarven Ale is the dead elf, and the troll that's chopped off its hand is the Chalice of Wrath. We've got the War Trombone backing up there, and the wizard in the woods. There are the ghouls, that's the one with the Drunken Ram, and zombie trolls there. Goreblight, and some nice cinematic camera angles there of my trolls looking on. Turn 1, and I am going first. I can't remember whether I chose to go first or not, but either way, I'm pushing straight onto that hill. I probably did choose to go first, or would have done regardless, because I wanted to get on this hill before the enemy get in range to charge onto it. So I've claimed the hill. Anything coming forwards now is at risk of being charged by this Thunderous Charge 2 unit. So whether they make use of the difficult terrain to try and mitigate that, we shall see. I've also sent the Troll Bruiser as far forward as possible. If anyone wants to charge the Bruiser, then that's not going to bother me at all. He's just going out there first on his own. So anything that comes forward too far is going to be within charge range of the Bruiser. And I can use him a little bit like chaff. He's not that expensive. Even with the Blade of Slashing, he's only at 115 points. So he's probably the chaffiest thing I've got that can actually behave that way. The Trombone and the Whiz are obviously cheaper, but they're not really ideal for that job. The Whiz wouldn't be able to block anything, and the Trombone isn't really fast enough to get out in front of enemy units. So the Bruiser is probably the main unit that I would look at if I need to block something off. So sending him up first means that with the nimble as well, anything that's coming forward too far here, I'm going to have my pick of which units to charge with him to cover my advance with everything else. Because, like I was saying, I don't want to get hit first by multiple units of ghouls, and I want to be able to precision strike on the zombie trolls first, them being the big threat. And obviously, if I hit the ghouls first in any way, then that's going to take away their hitting power, isn't it? With all the thunderous charge they're relying on, with the ghoul ghast. And my lightning bolt whiz gets a couple of damage onto this regiment of ghouls there, so just making a start on that. And turn 1 for the undead. So, moving up, not hugely fast, but this is undead we're talking about. The ghouls are pretty fast, but they don't just want to move up there and be charged willy-nilly by all my stuff. And so with it only being 25 minutes around, it's tempting to take your moves incredibly fast because you feel under that time pressure. But if you just take it the extra second here and there, you can avoid some simple mistakes. So let's find out whether I or any of my opponents made any foolish mistakes during this. Let me know if you spot any in the chat or the comments afterwards, by the way, because I'm sure there will be some blunders, people under the time pressure, especially when it starts ticking closer and closer to 0 towards the end of the game. So the undead forces have moved up, and they've presented me with some opportunities here. So what I could do, I could charge the Fleabags off the hill into those ghouls, but I'm pretty sure that they would become disordered, as I would have to pass through that piece of terrain to touch them by the shortest route. So I'm probably not going to do that. My troll Bruiser here has some options. Mainly this troll horde, so I could charge them, lock them down, but what I decide to do is I'm going to throw the Bruiser and the Fleabags into this zombie troll unit, hoping that if I can do, let's say, 8 damage to them, which isn't totally out of the realms of possibility, then I can push things up behind and make sure I'm not allowing this unit to come and spoil my day by blocking me in over here. And then I'll have units that can come in and finish off that troll unit next turn. That is the plan. So, you'll see here, I've pushed these guys up. Now, I probably could have held these guys back a little bit, because I think I've got them in range to be double charged by these 2 units here, which is a bit unnecessary. Another thing that's totally unnecessary, probably because of the time pressure, the Wiz has moved forward to use the lightning bolt when he could have actually just stayed where he was and stayed out of range of these units that are quite unreliable with their wild charge, so you don't want to get too close to them. Trombone's safe, but no targets at the moment. Lightning bolt does some more damage to that unit. I was hoping that the lightning bolt could maybe really annoy those units and maybe wave a 1 before the real combat starts. So there's the double charge. Now, I'm quite prepared to lose these 2 units because the ghouls can very easily steam in there and annihilate that unit, and possibly in the flank. I think that's probably a flank there. And the Gorblight and the zombie trolls could take out the Bruiser quite handily. However, the trolls are going to be damaged after combat. That means that next turn I'll be able to steam in with these trolls into those ghouls, and even if they manage to kill them, I would be confident trolls could take out ghouls in a round. Fairly confident. And then these trolls could pounce in there and take out the zombie trolls, finish them off, because if they're already damaged, any troll type unit, so looking at trolls, and it complicates it a little bit when you get to the defense 6 ones, like the golems and elementals, that kind of thing, but in general, a troll or an ogre type unit that's defense 5 with 18 attacks, then generally they need a teensy bit more than 1 round to kill each other. Usually. Trolls can often become wavered as a result of such an attack, but all my trolls have some way to mitigate that anyway. So, usually you want to get the enemy damaged before you go in there, if you want to take them out in 1 go. So that's the plan. Let's see how it goes. So I do 6 damage on the zombie trolls, which is acceptable, and you'd expect a unit of trolls that then go into them afterwards to hopefully finish them off. I would have liked a couple more points of damage, which would put it closer to a guarantee. But as it is, so there's 6 damage there, a unit of trolls charging into them. So they hit on 4s, there's going to be 9 hits, and then they're going to be wounding on 3s. So you'd expect to do another 6, which puts them on 12, and I think they're dash 17 zombie trolls, are they? Something like that. So it wouldn't be a very big roll to get rid of them. However, at that level, you can see how adding just 2 more points of damage there would be quite a big deal. It would put you into almost guaranteed. It's never a guarantee, but it puts you into the zone where it's extremely likely. So 6 is a teensy bit low there for my liking. And there's also the possibility that undead units can regain wounds in various ways as well. So I would have liked a little bit more there, just to make it more certain. But we can work with that. And turn 2 for the undead. So, this one here probably didn't need to give them this double charge. But they've got it anyway. And I didn't need to give this Ghoulghast the charge on my whiz. He did have to roll the highest on his D3 for the wild charge to make it to him, which is what he did. So it was a 2/3 chance of being safe, but not on this occasion, so the whiz is going to get killed. But on the other hand, it does mean that the Ghoulghast doesn't join in this combat, because those two and the Ghast, I would actually be very concerned about that. With 2 of them, there's a chance they can survive still. The Goblin is just sitting in the middle there, because it's going to distribute a wound to all these nearby units, which it does there. Ghouls in the flank, zombie trolls in the front, and the whiz is dead as a result of the Ghast. These trolls become wavered as a result of this combat here with these 2. So that's perfect, really. They've got the Dwarven Ale, so I've got a very good chance of ignoring that and being able to countercharge. The Troll Bruiser is killed by the zombie trolls, and the Fleabags are killed. So the way it's lined up here, because the Goblight's gone into them, and does 6 damage, but doesn't kill them. So, because the Goblight went into this unit, that's then blocked off. So this unit is going to have to be the one to charge the zombie trolls there and try and finish them off. And I've got other options though, because this flank is open now. So this unit of trolls can just back away an inch from the Gorblight, and they can get into that flank of the ghouls and take them out quite handily. And the countercharge here could probably take them out in one go as well, because they're already wounded from lightning bolts. And then the Trombone can focus its effort on the Gorblight. And then I'll just have to leave this ghoul unit, so when I've killed the zombie trolls, turn round to face this sort of way, so that I'm not going to get flanked by them, and also hopefully not going to get horribly surged to death by the Gorblight, to try and limit the options for that. Because if it wants to completely turn around and face the other way, try and make sure that that would put it in the front, which looks possible. So turn 3. Ghouls, countercharged, murdered. Ghouls charged in the flank, murdered, and they then turn around to face the Gorblight. However, so these trolls steam in there, and remember I said I was hoping to do 6 wounds with trolls against zombie trolls. I believe they did 2. Wow. So very disappointing, and that could potentially be the decider there, because I needed that to come off, because that is, as it is now, those ghouls can actually see the rear of these trolls, which is a very bad time, but you can see exactly how it would have looked had I killed those trolls and turned round. I would have been on 3 scoring units, my opponent would have been on 2, and I've still got the Trombone. The Ghast and the Necromancer are still alive, but I think I would have been in a very good position to take out the remaining scoring units before the end of the game. And I think I'm about to cough. Hold on. I have returned. So I have had a bit of a cough lately, not COVID thankfully, but occasionally there are coughs that go around that aren't COVID related. And I was doing a lot of talking obviously at the tournament yesterday and for this video. So, where was I? Okay, it's looking bad because of that. And obviously I took the risk to send them in there. I sacrificed 2 units to set up this move. And the fact that it didn't work means that I could have easily just saved the cavalry and held them back, which would have put me in a much better position now. But the fact that I sacrificed 2 units to set up this move, it was kind of an all or nothing. And when it comes to nothing, this is what you're left with. Because if they were killed, they would have turned around, to face sort of that way, probably. Putting the ghouls in the front and the Goblin in the front. So even if it... I think actually the Goblin could have probably... Which way is the Goblin facing? Maybe that way. So if it just surged into their... Maybe it would hit their flank. Obviously I never got to test out the exact angles of placing this unit down because they didn't kill them. But I think I could have probably got it so that this unit couldn't get the flank and these ones were also in the front. It looks possible because you look at the angles involved here. Yeah, probably very doable. However, didn't kill them, so this is a bad time to be a Goblin. So the Ghast is going to kill the War Trombone. The Trolls here have now been double charged because of that, and they're in a bad position now. This Horde of Trolls here are slightly damaged and they're going to have to face off against the Goblin. And remember, damage is plinked away at anyone near the Goblin on their turn. So these trolls are dead, sadly. And they paid the price, so 3 units were sent in there to try and take out the zombie trolls. I felt it was a decent plan, but it did not pay off. And at this points level, when you're sacrificing half your army for a plan, then if it doesn't come off, you're not in a good position because you don't have units to throw away at this points level. Everyone else is fine. They do not get killed. The Trombone gets killed. And you can see a human hand there. So, it's not looking good suddenly. Those trolls are at death's door. One more troll attack on them is going to be fine, but I'm not going to be able to get to them. Because there's a hill in the way, the Goblin's in the way, there's ghouls, there's Necromancer, it's just a mess, and I'm probably not going to be able to reach that unit. So just to remind you that this is the Invade scenario. So, at the moment, because that's the centre line, I think it's units entirely in your opponent's half. So I don't think anyone's actually in the lead scenario-wise at the moment. Turn 4. So, charge the Goblin because the other Troll Horde can't see it. And get some damage on it, but it's going to be a bad time. There's zombie trolls there. We're going to get eaten. Just not much else I can do at this stage. Get these trolls ready for backup to try and kill something in the next turn. Turn 4 for the undead. So, the zombie trolls go into the trolls at the back there. The ghouls and the Goblin go into the unit at the front. The Ghast also went into the rear unit and helped kill them off. And they're all dead. Wow, wow, wow. So everything's dead. And then the undead can just move forward with their remaining units. So if we wind back to this pivotal moment, let's see how different it would have looked if this unit of trolls had died right there and I turned round to face this sort of direction. So, let's see, I would be in the enemy half, so they couldn't just leave me there. The ghouls probably would have had to charge me in the front if I was able to keep this thing out of the flank. I would have 2 pretty healthy troll units that would then be ignored if they decided to double up on this unit anyway, which would then be ready to steam in and go after the Goblin. The Trombone would probably still have died to the Ghast, unless I managed to block it. Because actually, the Trombone didn't need to be visible to the Ghast at all. I think I could have moved it into a safer position, but obviously we're on pretty tight time constraints at this event, so killed. So that moment there, definitely pivotal. But when you take a big risk in a low point level tournament, there's always a chance if it doesn't come off, it's going to cost you the game because you don't have a lot left over to bounce back with. So that's the end of round 1. Round 2, against the Brotherhood, Order of the Green Lady, in the Pillage scenario. So, we've got a troop of Brotherhood Centaurs, Order of Redemption, a regiment, 2 hordes of Water Elementals, a Devoted, with Amulet of the Fireheart, Bane Chant, and mounted on Forest Steed. So only 5 units and lower unit strength than me. But, obviously, you need units to score by sitting on these pillage tokens. We both pretty much just put them down the middle, because that's where we both want to fight, it seems. So, I've got more units. However, this table is not great for my cavalry. There isn't really a clear lane for them to get into the fight very easily. So there's a wall over here. If I had them on that side, there would have been a wall there. The only good place for cavalry really is there, I think. And I believe my opponent probably chose sides. Maybe? Not entirely sure. But that's the only real half-decent spot. Maybe? Because they've got a reasonable distance to cover to get to that thing. They've got the token there a little bit close to them. So they don't want to just sit back that far. And then even if they do sit there on the token, they're then not a threat to anybody because the woods are right there. If these guys get onto this token, of course, there's quite a nice little channel there. Whereas the channel that way is more obstructed by the woods. It's a bit more narrow. It doesn't run parallel to where the battle's going to be taking place. So, not sold on the cavalry having a good spot in this game. So I could have just put them behind my lines, really. Or I could have put them here to oppose the enemy cavalry only. And maybe even taken on a hindered charge into them. But we'll see. I've got a big blob of trolls. So my opponent, the trick with this army, from the army list, there's a lot of healing in it. So there's regeneration on the water elementals. There is Radiance of Life. And, let's see, there's also Heal 3 on the Devoted. So there's Regeneration, Radiance of Life, and Heal 3. So there's lots of healing capability. So I don't want to be leaving things on a bit of damage still alive. That would be a bad idea. So, with that in mind, I want to try and double up on charges where I can. I'm going to try and focus on these three objectives, obviously. I don't care about this one. All I'm really going to do is kind of set up camp in this zone here. And if this unit wants to come off that objective, then that's fine by me. Because that means no one's going to get it. And my opponent only has 4 scoring units to my 5, so it's a little bit of an advantage for me there if I play it correctly. Let's find out. So water elementals, the knights, more elementals, but not quite as exciting cavalry. Turn 1, so the Order of the Green Lady move up. Not too far at all, very short turn. Knight Haunter in the chat, hello there. Evening, Andy. First, great event. I really enjoy small point games, 1000, 1500. Hope you enjoyed it too. This was actually a very fun event. I think the unranked nature of it helps with the fun element to some degree. Because I'm one of those people, when I know there's tournament points or trophies on the line, then it gives me that extra edge. When it's just a practice game, I'm not going to say I don't care about the result, because that's putting it too strongly. But when it is a practice game, then if I lose, but I feel it was down to bad luck, then I'm still happy. Because I feel like, okay, I implemented the tactics I was trying to do, and it just didn't come off. But in the future, it might do in a game that matters, is the way I look at it. And if I make a mistake, then I'll think, okay, that's a good learning experience for when I'm playing a game that matters. That's how I look at practice games or unranked games generally in Kings of War. It also means that if your opponent asks, can I go back and do this thing I forgot, you're going to be a lot more lenient if it's unranked. Because there's not much up for grabs. Even if there are prizes at an event, for a lot of us in the community, we already have multiple huge armies. We don't necessarily need prizes if it's just a box of miniatures that may or may not be for an army we already have. So it's not that big an incentive to lower your sportsmanship levels. So friendly game, it does change the behaviour of players a little bit. But not too much, because Kings of War is pretty friendly anyway. I haven't seen too many people refuse to let someone go back and do something if you haven't moved on too far. Me personally, I've let people do combats in the next turn if they forgot to do it in the previous turn. Just let them attack twice. So really, I don't want to come on these videos after the events and describe how I used a tactical masterstroke to win a game by letting my opponent forget some of their rules. Okay, so on my turn, the Fleabags have swarmed up there onto the flank. So it does mean that my enemy cannot just sit there and look pretty. They're going to have to move forward or get flanked or turn to face me and start opening up other options. So I wasn't too precise with my movement here, so I think I've actually left something open that I probably shouldn't have done, which you'll see shortly. I do plink some wounds onto this unit. This is the one that looked the most vulnerable of all the units, so I thought if I can kill that, that's one scoring unit just gone, and that means my opponent only has 3 and has to be really careful with them from then on, but can't kill them yet, just 2 wounds. And they are far away from the healing sources though, so maybe my opponent will not want to heal that unit. And so this is in the next turn for the Order of the Green Lady. I shouldn't have put myself in charge range of the elementals as well. That's probably a mistake, or I just nudged them a little bit too far, but I was happy to be in range of the knights, but not this unit. So a double charge comes in. The other ones back away or just turn, so they're not going to get hit by my Fleabags. And checking to make sure that they're out of range of the Bruiser as well, who's obviously nimble. Ion says, good point, I was excited about a big haul of ranking points. Yes. When I signed up for the event, I was under the impression that it was ranked, but then at the beginning of the day, it was announced that it was an unranked event. So from that point on, I went into it with the attitude, let's just, if there's a fun option, then I'm going to take it because there's nothing really on the line except maybe a trophy that isn't represented in the Kings of War rankings. So just my personal trophy collection, that's all really. So those trolls are dead. And sadly, I don't have that much to hit this slot with now because the way I positioned the units. If I put these trolls a little bit further back, obviously, to stop this unit getting in, it would have been not a very tempting proposition at all to just charge knights into the trolls and then maybe get triple charged. But as it is, the Bruiser isn't going to kill them. The trolls can definitely kill knights in one round if they get a good round of attacks in, but let's see. Turn 2, 7 wounds, which isn't ridiculously low by any means. It's a decent start, so you can see the trolls have been replaced with a blank base here because the units were too pokey, so they're just prodding each other too much. We want to make sure we've got them in the right spot. So the Fleabags have moved up a bit, in position to strike. The Troll Bruiser, this one a bit of a needless move, so I was quite happy to sacrifice the Bruiser here actually, to get the enemy units to attack it. But I didn't really need to give up a flank. I could have angled it slightly so that this unit couldn't charge the trolls, this unit couldn't get the flank, but alas. So with the, even though in the first couple of rounds the clocks aren't that harsh, so there is time, it's just you feel under a little bit more pressure because you know it's lower time than usual. So I think with a bit more forethought, this Bruiser could have been positioned or used a bit better here. I could have even allowed that unit to charge the trolls and set something else up to counter them with, because the elementals probably aren't going to kill the trolls in one round. And that is how it's looking there. These guys know they're going to have to make a hindered charge at some point, unfortunately. Turn 3, so double charge into the Bruiser, which I kind of accept because it gets both these units into range so I can actually attack them next turn. The Knights are going to countercharge into my trolls there, but they shouldn't do too much damage. 7 is a reasonable amount and they could have easily wavered them there, but thankfully they don't. The Troll Bruiser is dead, as expected. And then they turn to face that way. So I'm kind of boxed in a bit here. I don't think this unit of trolls can get to the flank of that unit, because by the time they've pivoted they'll be facing more like that way. So not going to be able to reach that unit with them. So I'm going to double charge this unit. Hindered charges. And then just blast away at this unit here with the Trombone and the Whiz and see what happens. Because this unit is still blocked from getting in because the terrain's there, so they're not going to be able to help out. And I'm confident I can kill the Knights next round and then these trolls will be in play. Turn 3. Well, I say I was confident. How much damage were they on at the end of that turn? Because they healed and they had the Radiance of Life as well. So I can't actually see how many wounds they're on there. But I get them up to, it looks like 8 wounds there. So it's not a very good round of attacks and they're not a very amazing nerve roll either. So they're still fine, sadly. These two units combined only do 6 damage by the looks of it there, which is not very good. They were both hindered, so I wasn't expecting a massive amount, but it would have been nice to get some decent damage there. And only 3 from the Trombone and the Lightning Bolt, which is a little bit disappointing. I would have liked a teensy bit more. So at the moment, because I'm not finding optimal charges, and when I am making charges, they're not doing as much damage as I would hope, and then I'm not rolling obscene nerve rolls. I'm just rolling, I think, slightly below average on nerve rolls. I was rolling like usually 4 or 5 each time. So I'm not wavering anything, and I'm not taking anything out, which is the nightmare against this list because of all the healing and regenerating capabilities it has. So if it turns into a grind, then I've got no chance. So, units get lots of wounds back. Look at those regeneration rolls, and healing and radiance of life, and just wounds back all over the place. So I'm back to where I started, now these trolls are dead. So, wow, and those trolls are dead. Oh no, the Fleabags are dead. The trolls are not dead. But it's not looking healthy, and my Trombone's the Knights, doesn't do enough again, because they got plenty of wounds back last time. Trolls decide to just have one go to try and take out some of these elementals, but again they fail quite horribly. Got them up to 10 damage, but couldn't roll a decent nerve test. Just rolling below average on the nerve rolls in this one. And turn 5, it's going to be game over here because the trolls are going to die. Trombone's going to die. And yes, I've only got the Whiz left, but I can take some things out with it though. So the Whiz is going to start shooting away as my opponent backs away onto the objectives to try and score more points. The Whiz damages the Knights by the looks of it, or if they were already damaged. My turn takes out the cavalry unit on the left flank that were holding that. In the next turn, the Knights just reposition a bit, and then the Whiz has another go at them. But nothing accomplished there, so my opponent has 2 objectives, I don't have any, only got the Whiz left. Wow, wow, wow. So, I don't think I played that one particularly well. If we zoom back, I could have definitely done better with the positioning of some of my units, but when you're on the tight clock, then you do probably not move in an optimal fashion. So things I could have done differently here. Could have made sure these guys weren't making a hindered charge. I could have easily avoided the double charge that brought these 2 units into the action and invited the Knights to come in on their own. I could have maybe used my cavalry against this unit here. Even going over the fence, I still would have been fairly confident they would have had a chance over there. I could have backed them up with the Wizard to give them a bit of lightning bolt first. Those 2 as a combo to take that flank and then turn in and face this way and make it a real tricky proposition for the enemy to hold on to all 3 of their scoring units then. So obviously with hindsight there's lots of things you can do differently. In general though, I didn't position well enough to get double charges in, which is what you need. Obviously this one was hindered, so that didn't go too well. But you need double charges on these types of units that are going to be healing back so many wounds potentially with lots of different sources of healing. You don't want to leave them alive. So, didn't go very well, and we're moving on to game 3. So, against Goblins this time. And this list, so very different to my Goblin list. We've got 3 hordes of rabble, a Luggit gang, who I've never used before, and they're just goblins that can hit you quite hard, really. With a bit of wild charge in there. Flaggit with Loot of Insatiable Darkness for the Bane Chant. Gorp's Explodomatic Bang Sticks formation. Maggers, did I miss anything? Yes, you missed a couple of games in which I lost at this unranked event, so obviously it doesn't matter that I lost. Fleabag Riders, 2 regiments, and a king on Fleabag as this formation. And what it does, it gives Thunderous Charge 2 to the Fleabag Riders, and it also gives them explodey attacks. I think it's when you roll a 6 to hit. So, I probably should have looked at that before the game. because I just looked down the list and thought, hey, I know goblins, I don't need to read what this formation does, I'm sure it's fine. So I wasn't really factoring in that they had extra thunderous charge or that their attacks exploded too much. So I wasn't taking that as a threat, unfortunately. So we'll see whether I make any mistakes as a result of that. So we're down to 20 minutes each now, rounds 3 and 4. So this scenario is push. So there's a push token in the middle there, and we've put some on our unit. So I've got cavalry on this flank versus the other Fleabags. There's also the king on Fleabag there. So I'm thinking if we just get into a bit of a stare down, I'm tying up more of my opponent's army than he is tying up of mine. So if we just want to stare at each other, that's fine, and then I'll take my chances in the rest of the battle line. There are Fleabags on that side as well, which are a flank threat. I've put all my tokens on the middle troll unit here. I think we have 2 each to put down. Got my Bruiser next to the woods. Some rabble hordes there with a fence on their head. There's the Flagget. More rabble and the Luggets behind them. And I think which unit has the tokens? We'll see in a moment. Turn 1. So the opposing goblins go first. Take a hill, always a bold move. So those guys are actually on Thunderous Charge 3 from up there, which is nice, with exploding attacks, so wouldn't like to be hit by them, ideally. And I think it's this unit that has all the tokens on it. Or is it that one? We'll see in a minute. Turn 1 for me. So, pushing everyone up, moving away so that the Trombone isn't going to be charged, and neither is the Wizard, by the Fleabags on the hill, because they can currently see over the trolls. And you can see it's not that unit with tokens, I think it's this one here. But I do a little bit of lightning bolt to that unit just to make a start on them. And I've set up here so that no flanks are open for the Fleabags there, by keeping all these units perfectly aligned. However, this was a foolish piece of positioning. Because I was underestimating these Fleabags, I wasn't actually overly concerned that this one might flank my troll unit here. And I should have been more concerned about that and not just push them forward so they were poking onto the hill. I could have held my line back a little bit so they weren't on the hill and therefore invisible to the Fleabags, because that is actually an open flank now, which I've just not taken as a threat because I didn't really look through the formation properly. So we'll see what happens there. These Fleabags do not charge off the hill. They instead elect to get down from the hill and get out of everyone's charge arc and just stare down my flank. These ones do take the charge, obviously. The king is just hanging out back there and shoots a bit at my Fleabags, doing some damage to them. And the rest of them are just quite happy. So those trolls are dead. But I'm not too devastated by this because I'm pretty confident, because with their exploding attacks they actually damage themselves. So how many damage are they on now? 5. So I'm pretty confident my War Trombone and my Whiz will be able to take them out. So I'm not overly troubled by that, but I wouldn't have liked to have lost trolls that early. It was just a foolish mistake based on playing too quickly because of the clocks, I think, and not looking sufficiently at my opponent's army list. So turn 2. As I suspected, those Fleabags go down quite handily to the War Trombone and the Lightning Bolt. The Fleabags charge into the king, do a couple of damage there. And everyone else just positions to prevent this Fleabag unit getting a flank charge on anybody. And that's how we're looking. So I had to go into a bit of a defensive posture here because they are a threat. And they're going to continue. They can continue dancing around me if they want. But now that I've freed up my back line clearers, they can come and help out in a minute. Turn 3. So the Fleabags do not charge in yet. They just continue circling around. They are in difficult terrain though, which means that if they do charge in, it's not going to be nearly as effective. And the rabble hordes are moving forward. King does a bit of damage back to my Fleabags, and that's how that turn ends. So, what options do I have here? The Wiz and the War Trombone are obviously going to head on over that way. The thing with these Fleabags, they could have easily stayed out of range of my War Trombone and still been a threat, but they have just put themselves in range of it. So, they are going to get scorched. And we'll see if that's enough to actually take them out though, because I have to ignore them and I have to just start throwing things into combat now. and we'll see if that works. Turn 3. So, wow, those Fleabags do go down because they're not inspired, because they're on the side of the battlefield without any inspiring. And Trombone and Whiz, only 5 damage, but a nice high nerve roll, not inspired, and they are dead. And in the middle, so my Fleabags flank charged because they, let's see, so they were able to back away an inch and then hit the flank of this unit, and the Trolls have gone into the front, and then these two have gone into the front of that one. So sadly that wasn't enough to actually kill the unit. 14 damage. I would have hoped to do a bit more there, maybe, with a front charge from the Trolls and a flank charge from the Fleabags. And this one looks like only 6 damage, or is that 9? Either way, not enough to kill them yet. So I've got everyone into combat. I've cleared out all the fast moving units that were a threat to me. Still got my Wizard and my War Trombone. And the enemy have still got this hard hitting unit, but the rest of them are just rabble. So they need good rounds of rolling to take me out. Turn 4. So the Luggets have gone into the Fleabags, rabble into the Trolls, and the 2 hordes of rabble have both charged into the Troll horde. The King has charged into this one as well, along with that rabble. So they end up on 4 damage, not dead yet. The Fleabags are dead. And here just 4 wounds on that unit as well. So the rabble do pretty abysmally in combat. Turn 4 for me. So Trolls and the Bruiser back into this unit, get them up to 15 now. And here, let's have a look back there, who was on the hill. So the King gets lightning bolted and war tromboned up to 8 wounds, but can't even waver him. So that must have been a double 1 probably. Trolls finish off that horde. So we've got the Luggets ready to come in, we've got this rabble ready to come in who can go for a double charge there on my unit that's holding all the tokens because they picked up the middle one as well. And then this is the enemy unit with all the tokens. So all the tokens are about to collide. And in push you get double points for holding the tokens in your opponent's half. So at the moment I'm winning the scenario, but it's very close and we don't have that many units left for carrying tokens. The Goblin units are quite heavily damaged, some of them. So triple charge there because the King joins in as well because of his miraculous survival. And this horde is trying to finish off the Trolls there. So this Troll horde is gone. All the tokens have been moved onto this unit. I'm not sure that's what I would have done, because this unit is further away from danger, so I would have put some tokens on them probably. Although, having said that, they are a smaller unit, so more chance of them being lightning bolted off. And over there, nothing to worry about for me. Turn 5, so managed to kill off that horde now. Turn the Trolls round, the Bruiser turns round to face into the action as well, but can't see the Goblins past my own Trolls, so I'm going to need a bit longer. Managed to get rid of the King, because he was just going to be annoying. And so, this unit, what's it going to do next turn? It could move forward, turn sideways to make sure there are some tokens in my half. It could drop some tokens and then move. This unit could go and pick some of them up. So what would you do if you were this Goblin horde carrying all the tokens? You're on a little bit of damage, there are Trolls staring at you. What would you do if they don't have enough space to go backwards and get out of line of sight of the Trolls? If they go forwards, they're going to get flanked. If they can go forwards and turn, they'll still be in the front, potentially opening up line of sight to the Bruiser. If they stay where they are and turn, then it's still going to be just Trolls hitting them. Would you drop the tokens or what? They can also charge the Trolls, which is what they do. So the Rebel unit with all the tokens charge into the Trolls, which means if they don't kill them, then we're going to have the Bruiser able to see them next time. The Luggets go after the Whiz. And they waver this Troll unit. So this is the Troll unit with the Staying Stone, which means... wow. So only 6 damage, and then still a waver. So that means that they must have rolled at least a 9, because they've the Staying Stone there, on the nerve check. So very unlucky Trolls there to get wavered. So I'm probably going to need a turn 7 to kill this unit now. So on... the Wiz is dead as well. So on my turn 6, what can I do? Do I charge this unit with the Bruiser, or do I War Trombone them? Or do I War Trombone this unit and charge in there? Well, turn 6, I decide to actually put the War Trombone on the hill and flame that unit without having to worry about this unit providing cover, because that unit is the priority right now. So, got them up to 5 damage. And my trolls get the chance to regenerate a little bit if they're lucky, and the Bruiser moves into position ready for next turn. And we do get a turn 7. So if it ended there, it would just be a big loss to me, because my opponent has all the tokens. But we do get turn 7, which means that my opponent is able to try and finish off the trolls again, puts more damage on them, but cannot actually waver them or kill them this time. And the Luggets are kind of stuck in no man's land. They probably could have charged something. I don't know if there was going to be space. Let's see. It's tough to see, but I think they were actually facing this way. So I think they could have charged something, because they could see the trolls. They didn't though. So turn 7 for me. Actually, I think it may have been because my opponent was getting low on time. So just didn't want to do the extra attacks. I think that could have been it. I think it could have been clock motivated. Because we only get 20 minutes each in this one, and we were on turn 7. So, my turn 7. The Trombone takes out the Luggets, and the Trolls and the Bruiser kill off that unit and steal all the tokens, giving me all the gold and the win. So, Maggers, yes, those Luggets on a multi-charge is a miss. It sure is, but I'm pretty sure it was down to the clock. I think my opponent only had like 30 seconds left to do the attacks, and therefore just didn't have time to roll that many dice. So I think that was the sole motivation there. So let's look if there was time for a double charge, if they double charged the Horde, and whether that, if that had resulted in them dying, the Horde, then that would have almost certainly won it for the green goblins here. If they didn't kill the trolls with the multi-charge, or had run out of time and not been able to complete the attacks, then that probably would have left front to the troll Horde and flank of the Horde for the Bruiser, potentially. Depending how far they hang down, actually, because he is nimble. So, would have been interesting to look at if that had been possible. But, turn 6, it was a big loss. Turn 7 turns it into a big win. So, maximum points, only an enemy Flaggett left alive. Nighthaunter says, looks like a really solid list. I would not fancied facing 3 hordes of zombie trolls with some cavern shooting on the side. Well, regular trolls. I took Horde of Lower Abyssals with Hammer of Measured Force, Horde of Molochs, Regiment of Succubi, Warlock with Piercing Arrow, Efreet with Diadem, Fireball 21, Champion with Lightning and Blade of Slashing. That does sound like a pretty good list, that. I would have been interested in facing that with my trolls. It does sound good. Molochs are always a pretty spicy option. Hammer of Measured Force, probably, is... There are some lists where you would just be kicking yourself for taking that. If someone brought nothing but like 8 hordes of zombies or something. But overall that looks like a good list. Okay, next. So we're back on track with a win. On to the next round. After, of course, I take pictures of all the armies. So we've got a Goblin army here. Nighthaunter. Agreed we should play a game with our lists. Yes. We should do that with a very low amount of time on the clock. Then, after this Goblin army here, which is very nice, we've got some Dwarves. We've got my Goblins, of course. We've got some more Dwarves with a Behemoth, nice shields. We've got the Undead army I faced earlier. We've got Goblins, the Goblin army I just faced. We've got Abyssal Dwarves. Now, when I was looking at Abyssal Dwarf options before this tournament, because obviously with an Abyssal Dwarf army I could have taken it, but 1,000 points you barely get anything. I mean, look at this. So this is the kind of list that I could have taken. So I would have only taken 2 hordes of golems, because I've only got 2, and I would have probably put in a greater golem. Only 1 Ironcaster, probably. And maybe a troop of gargoyles. I don't know what else I would have left, how many points I would have at that point. But you don't get much if you just take 2 hordes of golems and no greater golem, you can fit a little bit more in. But this list here is quite an interesting one, which I may talk more about shortly. We've got what I assume is probably a nature army with water elementals there. We've got some Night Stalkers, very nice, some Butchers, Terror. We've got the Abyssal army that's being discussed in the chat there. So Molochs, never a fun sight on the battlefield. More Dwarves. Halflings, very colourful. Order of the Green Lady, which I faced earlier, unsuccessfully. More Night Stalkers with a Shadow Hulk. And Mind Screech. I think that's a planar apparition there. Butchers, popular again. They are a solid choice. So, next game. This is Control scenario, and we're up against the Abyssal Dwarves. So, 3 hordes of Lesser Obsidian Golems. One has the Brew of Sharpness. Again, I've never been that sold on the idea of a 45 point item to give an 18 attack unit plus 1 to hit. But maybe, when you consider that it's Crushing Strength 2 and Vicious for the Golems, then maybe it actually is worth a try. So I might give that a go at some point. Brew of Sharpness on the Golems. 2 more hordes with no upgrades. Ironcaster with Tome of Darkness, Surge and Mind Fog. And Dravok. So, there is a lot of Fireball and there is a lot of Surge here. Lots and lots of Fireball, lots and lots of Surge. So those 2 Ironcasters aren't just backup for the Golems. They can actually kill things on their own as well, which makes it a decent looking list. Low unit strength, only 3 scoring units, so Control maybe not the best scenario for it, because they're definitely not going to be able to contest all of them. I've got 5 scoring units, so a little bit of an advantage there to me. And if I want to score 2 points, then I would control this square here. If my opponent wants to score 2 points, then he would go for this square here in the bottom left. So divided into 4. It's just going to be a big battle of these big, tough, similar units in the middle. Obviously the Golems, in a straight up war of attrition you expect to win. They've got higher defense, they can't be wavered, and they're vicious. So they're just better, but they shouldn't have the edge on getting charges in, because they're slower, and I've got more units as well, so more things to potentially join in. So we'll see how it goes. They've also got the ability to be surged into flanks, or just to be surged straight forward. There's something like Surge 23 available in this army, which does mean there's a potential for 1 unit to have a mega surge. So if I leave anything open, and in fact I'm going to try to leave something open in a minute as bait, and you'll see if it gets taken. So got the Fleabags out on that hill, everything else just in a big wall of meat. Don't want to expose any flanks to any of these for surge shenanigans, that would be a bad idea. So, we're on 20 minutes each again. And turn 1, my opponent moves forwards, and that's it. That's the turn. No surging, because it doesn't want to mess up the line and potentially over-surge and give up any needless flanks, so I push everything forward. The Fleabags move up here. So, what I'm trying to tempt here is this unit of Golems can be surged into that flank. It's close enough. I think it would need a 9-inch surge, and with Surge 23 it's definitely doable. So I would very much like that unit of Golems to be surged all the way over here, away from the battle, and for these ones to just move forward and get multi-charged. But is my opponent crazy enough to take that bait against this unit that isn't as useful in this game? Look at all the terrain that's going to be hindering my charges against defense 6. So, a bit of lightning bolt damage dished out there. And is the bait going to be taken? Turn 2. And my opponent pushes things forward again and rolls some surges. Look at that surge roll. So there's 2 successes in there out of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. So look where that unit of Golems ends up. He really wanted to surge them into those trolls, get in the first hit, and try and kill them in 1 round. I think the one with +1 to hit is actually that unit there. So I wouldn't actually be that concerned because I think this unit might have become hindered on that wall if they successfully charged into me anyway. So I don't know if they would have actually killed the trolls, but they would have definitely put in a decent amount of damage. But they don't quite make it, meaning that now there's just all kinds of flanks opened up there. So the only thing I have to decide is how many units to charge this sitting duck with, and who to charge over there to block up the rest of the enemy advance. Because those guys are definitely dying unless I double one them. I've got so many flank options available. So, what I decide to do is triple charge. These guys hindered in the front, the Bruiser into the front, and this unit into the flank, which is enough to take them out, so they are dead. And this unit went into there, just to make a start on them and to block off the furious countercharge. My cavalry have just moved into this gap, so they're looking in this direction, ready to join in the game. And that looks like 5 damage done to them, so it's a good start. So my opponent is already down a third of the major fighting force, so it's a good start. Turn 3, so there's going to be a countercharge there, there's going to be some fireballs thrown out as well. 2 damage to the Fleabags, they're not worried about that. 5 damage to my trolls from the golems, which they won't be too thrilled about. These golems aren't eager to thrust themselves into the fight yet. I think they're actually in the flank, and that's why, because they won't actually fit with that unit charging into the front as well. So, what could have been done differently though? Maybe this unit of golems could just move sideways, and then this unit charge into the flank, hindered. I think that may have been possible. Maybe, if they're not in the flank, maybe set up a surge. I don't know, I think this unit could have done something in that round. I'm not 100% though. Turn 3, so what's going to happen here? It's just going to be everyone charging in, as many as will fit. These 2 in the front, this one in the flank. The Bruiser is going to charge one of these to get out of the way. And this guy, this unit here, is also going to charge one of them. It's going to be hindered because they're so close to the terrain, so they have to touch it. And there we go, so another unit of golems down. And the clocks do bring a bit of pressure, so if I had more time to analyse this situation, I could have positioned these units differently. So, let's have a look. I put 7 damage onto that. I can't remember if that's the Ironcaster or Dravik. But anyway, what could I have done differently here? I left all these units as they were. I could have just turned them all directly to face that unit, or at least face this way. But with the time constraints, I thought, you know, that looks safe enough, I'll accept it. But there is actually the possibility of this unit getting into a position to surge into the flank of my trolls, unfortunately. Which, I've got so many units left, I can afford, probably, to give away that unit against 1. So we'll see if that comes back to bite me at all. Turn 4, so they do get rotated and surged into that flank. It's going to be hindered. And the Ironcaster actually does a wound to the Fleabags in combat. And those trolls are dead. So I've got options next turn. Do I go for a... I'm not sure if this unit can see them. I think they probably can, so I could do a double... maybe a double front hindered charge into the golems there. But what do I choose to do? So turn 4, I decide I'm going to move the Trombone forward and start just tromboning them and putting wounds on them and set up the trolls. And use the Fleabags to try and finish him off, to stop him casting. The Bruiser is moving up there. So, setting up for the future. Moved all the way up there, so next turn, if those golems stay there, the Bruiser will be able to turn that way, threaten the flank, and then whichever way they turn, they're going to start getting hit by things, and if they want to sit there, they're just going to get tromboned, and I'm just going to win the game, because I've got more units, so they have to come out to attack at some point. Turn 5, so they decide they are going to come out now and go after this troll horde there, with assistance from one of the casters, and the other caster is trying to take out the Fleabags, and that troll horde does go down. So, it's not ideal that they got wounded, because now I can't just bypass these units to get to the flank of the golems, which would have been very nice. If they hadn't been wounded, they could have just ignored and just gone straight into the flank, murder, turn the Bruiser around, them into the front, and we would have been having a very good time. As it is, that unit is damaged, so the trolls going in there have got a chance to kill them. Turn 5, trolls in the front don't do that much damage, sadly, so they're going to live, but this troll unit is totally unharmed, so even against a +1 to hit unit, it's not guaranteed they'll just get killed immediately on the return. And this caster finally goes down after multiple rounds of combat, and on to turn 6. So the golems head in there, only do 5 wounds, which, fortunately, because the troll bruiser is now turning to look at their rear, and nobody likes a troll bruiser in the rear, it's going to end badly for anybody. And on to turn 6 for me, so the golems are dead. Later than I probably should have killed them. Maybe a few little sloppy positioning mistakes in there, stretched it out a bit longer, considering I had that nice early advantage, but managed to turn it successfully into a large win there. Just coughed right at the microphone. And we do get a turn 7, so there's some fireball attempts, but nothing much done. And turn 7 for me, spread out to get some zones to score me more points, and charge into the caster, but with the trolls somehow don't kill it. So those two Ironcasters, the Ironcaster and Dravik, survived way longer than I would have expected them to, and they actually held up some units. So another nice win there, and we move on to round 5, in which we only have 15... I just need to cough again. 15 minutes each to do all our turns, which is a very low amount of time, even at this point level. So here we go. I'm up against goblins again, 2 hordes of rabble, 2 regiments of mincer mob, 1 with the mead of madness, a wingit with the ramming speed, a king upgraded to groany snark, so it's the flying king with the blast and also can damage itself occasionally, and a troll bruiser with the pipes of terror. So this list was actually put out by Mr. Rob of Mantic, the tournament organiser as well. So not only was he calculating all the scores in a very amateurish fashion, might I add, he was also taking part in the event. So somehow found himself in the lofty position of facing me in the final round, which is truly baffling. And we'll see how it goes, because this is Dominate, which I'm fine with. I've got decent unit strength in some big, tough units there. And we'll see, my opponent's got good unit strength as well. Let's see, unit strength 12. So the individual units have lower unit strength than mine. Unit strength 3, 3, so they're the same as the trolls. Only 2 on the mincer mobs. And just 1 for the wingit and 1 for the bruiser. So I've got a tiny bit more unit strength. So I've just got the wall of meat in the middle, the trombone is back up, the whiz over on the flank, and the cavalry on this side. So, enemy troll bruiser. The mincer mob, obviously you don't want them getting charged to lose their thunderous charge, and you especially don't want them to get flanked. So if you put them on the front of your army, there's a higher chance of them getting flanked. You put them at the back, the angles just aren't as good for your opponent, and obviously they have to actually reach them. The wingit is over there. Let's have a look. Dan says, I've missed the start, we'll catch it on the rerun to see how your games went. It was nice to meet you, Andy. Yes, it was nice to meet you, and all the other... There were quite a lot of new players there. A lot of faces I hadn't seen before at Kings of War events, which, whether that was because it was unranked, or whether it was because it was at Mantic HQ, those could have been a couple of factors to bring in some new players. Dan says, Ian, your list was scary. My Shadow Hulk and Butchers had been running hot all day and just completely flubbed against you. Thanks for a fun game. So it looks like a couple of the people in the chat there had the ultimate grudge match at the event, and the Night Stalkers did not come out on top there against the Abyssals. So, what's my strategy here? Use the cavalry to try and stop the wingit from just dominating the flanks and getting in a position to do damage to my trolls. Plink off lightning bolts and try and just control the middle and minimise the damage that the mincer mobs can do, if possible. So, only 15 minutes though, you don't have time to do a whole lot of planning before the game actually starts. So, turn 1, everything just moving forward into the middle, inviting the enemy forward and plinking off some lightning bolt onto the enemy troll bruiser. Cavalry, I've intentionally put myself in charge range of the wingit, because I do not mind if that thing charges first. Unfortunately, I accidentally also put myself in charge range of the Goblin King there that flies. So that wasn't a good idea. So we had very uneventful turn 1 for both of us, and you can see the clocks there. 13 minutes and 13 minutes left on each. So I probably didn't want to put myself in charge range of the king as well. But unfortunately, because we're on a tight time frame here, I didn't check. Turn 2. So the goblins opposite me are moving forward quite boldly, using the rabble to screen the mincer mobs, which is a good idea. And I'm going to have to steam in there and try and just take things out and minimise what comes in on the counter. So here you can see that because I left this open, then the king can actually join in with that charge with the wingit, which is a bad time, because the wingit on its own I would be confident of surviving one round in the front, and then the wingit is stuck there fighting me, and I've got the trombone that can come over and start blasting it even if it does get the advantage, but the king there as well, I'm not very confident in their survival anymore, and they're dead. So I'm going to have to rely on the trombone to get over there and hopefully do damage to that wingit immediately. Okay, my turn 2. So what am I going to do? I'm going to try and focus and kill a unit. And the one I select is this one here, because I've got 2 troll hordes and the Bruiser that can all charge it. If I get them all in a row, protect their flanks as well from things, and then this unit can charge in there, which I believe puts them out of line of sight of the wingit, which is something like that. So these 3 units do kill the rabble horde in front of them quite handily, and now the mincer mob just has to decide who it's going to charge. These trolls do some damage to this horde, but not enough to kill them yet. And the war trombone does 5 damage to the wingit, which is a good start. So I don't think the wingit can see that unit. So you'll see we initially make a mistake at the start of the next turn as well. I think the whiz also joined in with the lightning bolt on the wingit as well. So you can see at the start of the next turn, we've got mincer mob making a hindered charge to join in with the rabble horde into the trolls on the left, and then on the right the mincer mob decide they're going to attack, double charge this troll horde with the troll bruiser. So then over here, so initially we thought this was a perfectly legal move, the wingit charging over the hill at the trolls, and then I had the presence of mind to check the height of the wingit and saw that it's actually the same height as the hill and the trolls, so it can't actually see them. So instead it decides that it has to join in on the war trombone, which I'm not sure is necessary, because now it's got this hill blocking its view again, so I would have probably just moved it onto the hill, so it would have had lots of options next turn, because it's not going to avoid being lightning bolted anyway, even if it's on the hill or down here. So if it's here, staring at all my flanks, that's a really scary proposition, and I would have to just pray to finish it off with the lightning bolt. So you can see here that these trolls become wavered, but they're the ones with Dwarven Ale, which means ha 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 ha. And this unit takes 6 wounds, but they're not concerned yet because of that unit of mincers there being hindered. They weren't able to get that much damage done. Trombone's dead as expected, and that's how it's looking at the moment. So I've still got 4 scoring units. My opponent also has 4, and in terms of unit strength, I've increased my advantage of unit strength a little bit, have I? I think we've both killed unit strength 3 so far, actually. Turn 3, so the whiz does actually kill off the wingit with the lightning bolt, so it didn't matter that it wasn't on the hill, because it's dead. The trolls countercharge the mincer mob, because you want to take away its thunderous charge, ideally. And that is what was accomplished. Over here, the other mincer mob, let's just go back and show you what was going on that flank. So this one gets flanked by these trolls here, the Bruiser in the front, and then this Bruiser is going to be attacked by my trolls that passed their Dwarven Ale test. So unfortunately they don't kill the Bruiser, so really abysmal roll there to not kill it. I suppose it's not a guarantee, but it would have been nice. This mincer mob is dead though. This Bruiser has to face this way because this one didn't die yet, so I can't leave anything to chance, and these trolls are able to face that way for where they're more needed, because this troll unit is a little bit in trouble. Even if they do get flanked by rabble, though, it's not that big of a deal. Rabble aren't that reliable. Turn 4. So, the Flying King decides that he's going to join in with the enemy Bruiser and go after this unit, which is probably a good move because he could potentially take them out with that roll. But I've got Inspiring nearby, so they're alive. Then over here, you can see that the trolls do actually die as a result of that flank from the rabble and the mincer mob in the front, which is reasonable to expect. I mean, the rabble, even if they're terrible, is a flank, so they've always got a chance. So, what do I see when I look at this picture now? I see that these trolls can charge into that unit that's carrying a lot of unit strength without worrying about this unit being able to charge them afterwards. I see that my Bruiser could take out that heavily wounded Bruiser and then turn around and be out of charge range, probably, of the mincer mob. And even if it wasn't out of charge range of the mincer mob, if the mincer mob charges in and kills the Bruiser, then I'm still up on unit strength if this unit kills this Horde. So for the scenario, I like the sound of it. Even though I've only got 3 units left, my wizard is just hiding down here. So I'm definitely not winning at the moment, but this unit is damaged already. Turn 4 for me, so I waver the enemy troll Bruiser, which isn't ideal. I would have liked to kill it after it's been attacked by trolls, a troll horde, and now a Bruiser, and it's still not dead. Over here I waver this Horde as well, which is nice. And you may notice that the mincer mob is dead. That was already damaged, and that's a result of the lightning bolt finishing it off, because they're now out of inspiring range. So, dead. So it's looking very good for me at the moment. I've wavered my opponent's major threats. I do actually need to kill them, because this is the centre point here, so all these units are currently scoring. So at the moment it's actually a draw by my count. We've got 4 unit strength within the dominate zone each. So turn 5. The Flying King decides to go after this troll horde, because there's a big amount of unit strength here on 13 wounds. That's surely going to die next time. And tries to just help out. Bit of damage onto the trolls. Turn 5 for me. So steam in there. What were they on? 13. Barely do anything. Get them up to 15 wounds. So a woeful attack roll from the trolls. Because that unit was wavered, so they weren't able to fight me, which meant that this was actually a hindered charge off the wall. So only managed to waver them. And then the Bruiser, who regenerated a couple of wounds, I then did a couple of wounds back to him again and wavered him again. So everything clinging on, so it's still a draw right now. Turn 6. And the wavered Bruiser does nothing but gets a wound back. And I think actually I waver it again in turn 6, but we're running low on time here. Hold on, which turn was that for me? That was my turn 5. Turn 6, nothing much happens. I waver them both again. So the end of it, the end of turn 6 actually looks like this, but with more damage done to this unit, I think. So as it stands, it's going to be a draw if it ends on turn 6. However, we do get turn 7, and the troll horde are able to kill off that rabble horde successfully. And I can't kill the Bruiser though, so I don't get maximum kill points, even though that Bruiser's been attacked non-stop for the last 3 or 4 turns. Can't kill it. So I don't get maximum kill points, but it is enough for the win. And you can see my opponent actually timed out before turn 7. So that meant that this king couldn't join in and try and kill off any units in the final turn, which would have been a bit dicey. Maybe could have had a chance at doing something to these trolls. And yeah, so there we go. I was able to have an uncontested turn 7 and win the game. And I just took a picture of a random diorama at Mantic HQ. So, despite the fact that the tournament was unranked, there were trophies. For the last place, there was a prize. There was a trophy for the best painted, the best sportsmanship, the top 3 players as well. And I believe there was a scoring blunder for the top 3 players. So I think 1 and 3 maybe should have been reversed, potentially. I don't know what the exact leaderboard looks like. I haven't seen the updated version of it with the corrected scores, but I think there was a mistake in there. And it looks like I finished 6th, which is pretty reasonable considering I lost the first 2 games. And that's fine for an unranked event. Obviously, if it was ranked, then I'd be cursing not getting the podium. And so, what did each game come down to? Game 1, I put all my eggs in the kill the zombie trolls basket, and then when I rolled badly and didn't kill them, I didn't really have a backup. So that went badly. Game 2, I think I had some positioning blunders and didn't get enough decent multi-charges in, and then rolled some below average nerve rolls as well, just to make it more one-sided. Game 3, obviously I needed turn 7, otherwise it was a massive loss that turned into a massive win as a result of getting turn 7, which is nice. And game 4, I got a very good start. I think my army matches up quite well against those obsidian golems, though. I've got plenty of crushing strength around in my army. So I did outnumber my opponent, and I think overall I liked my chances in that matchup. But it still can go badly when you're against units as tough as that. And the Ironcasters weren't exactly pushovers either, as it turned out. So a couple of lucky moments in that one, and some unlucky moments as well. And one questionable judgment moment, probably from both players in that game. And then in the last game there, the only real mistake was... Let's have a look. So I made the slight mistake of allowing the king to charge into my Fleabags and got them killed too early. I had some very unlucky rolls wavering this guy repeatedly towards the end that could have cost me the game, could have turned into a draw. And then obviously you have the slight fortune of the opponent timing out before the end of turn 7, but with it being only 15 minutes each, and I think that's fair. So, Night Haunter. Yeah, the top table was accidentally misrecorded, so first and third were reversed. Yes, that is what I believe was the case. Scores in the wrong column on one score sheet. Easily done. We can blame the TO. Yes, we can. And we will, I think. So, events like this, how do I feel about them not being ranked? Well, I would rather every event was ranked in general. But once I hear that it's unranked, then that does change the tone and the atmosphere and the playstyle a bit. And if people knew beforehand it was not ranked, then maybe that inspires certain new players to turn up who maybe don't want their humiliating, crushing losses of their first few games to appear on the rankings website. And also because it's a really strange format. So the really low time on the clocks does mix things up considerably. It's an unusual point level. So I can understand why you would maybe not rank that. I would still have it ranked, given the choice, if I was setting up an event with those rules. The one Kings of War event where I finished first in battle points, if you will, because I did get the first overall at another event, but the one I actually won purely on the rankings site, you can look and it'll see finished first next to it. That was quite a low point level event. I think that was 30 minutes per player, and it was 1,250 points, which was Goblins. So, is this going to be the last time for a while we see the Goblins, though? Because I don't have any Kings of War tournaments booked for a few months now. I'm going to try and find some in the meantime, but the next one I'm actually booked for at the moment is in August, so I'm going to have to find some before then, surely. But I'm currently building and starting to paint my what could be a vast Night Stalker army. I've got loads of models, just not finished. You may have seen the ones I've actually done. I've only done a few monsters and one unit so far, but I am working on them. And I've got a list planned. It's not a list based on any strategic genius, it's a list based on the models I have, a lot of which I was given, and the models that I can make with other things that I have lying around. 'Cause it's Night Stalkers, so you can have a bit of liberty to make weird tentacle things out of random models, which I have done, which you'll see updates of shortly. I've actually used a Bad Squiddo Games tentacle wishing well in an unusual way, which you may see. I've got a Reaper Beetle, which I've used in an unusual way as well, which you'll have to keep your eyes peeled for. And when I was at Mantic HQ yesterday, I did pick up some more Night Stalker Reapers, so I've got enough to make a couple of troops of those now, and some more Scarecrows, so I can make 2 or 3 hordes of them, and that should be enough based on everything else I've got to have a decent army. We shall see when that's ready. Hopefully by the next time there's a Kings of War event. If not, then I'll probably get the Abyssal Dwarves out again, or maybe even try Halflings or Undead or something, just to mix things up. We shall see. Anyway, it's time to wrap this video up, and let me know if you spotted any mistakes, any positioning or any movement blunders that you would have done differently, and consider the limited time that each player had as well. So anything that you spotted that you think is probably down to people rushing, feel free to point that out. And your thoughts on the army lists that you saw there. And what do you think about this point level? What do you think about 1,000 points? You can't fit a lot into your army. You can't make a big balanced list generally. A lot of people went all in on something and kind of used that as the core of their army and then just sprinkled other things around it. Is that the way to go? Is it the way to go to put something big and unexpected into the list? Maybe like a big flyer that's a third of your points, and then build around that and use that to threaten armies that probably weren't expecting to face something like that? Let me know your thoughts, and don't forget to check out all the links in the video description. Follow me on Twitter, join the Facebook group, and so on. And obviously, if you want to keep the red hot, sizzling, spicy, succulent, tender, moist, dishlicious, finger-licking good content flowing directly onto your taste buds via YouTube from this channel, then feel free to join the Patreon and give me a slice of your life savings every month to keep the proverbial lights on this channel and keep that content flowing out there, as you all love so much. And with that, all that remains to be said, I believe, is... well, in fact, I can tell you, the army that won Best Painted is the one I voted for, which, if you go back through the video, was the one with the... I believe it was the Night Stalkers with the big Shadow Hulk. I think I voted for that one, and I think it won Best Painted. So there you go. So my vote matters. All that remains to be said is, good night out there, whatever you are.